Hello and welcome to Sunday's edition of News Tonight. I'm Ashwarya Kapoor with you. Let us begin with the headlines. Bracing for an opposition onslaught in monsoon session, BJP holds meet to decide strategy on controversies involving Lalit Modi and Vyapam case. IPL governing body meets to decide fallout of punishment for CSK and Rajasthan Royals. 5-member panel to study Lodha panel's verdict. JDU, RJD, NCP and the Congress resolved to campaign jointly against the BJP in Bihar. Floods in many cities throw normal life out of gear in North India. People stranded in many places by landslides. And days after the Iran nuclear agreement, US Defense Secretary Ashton Carter starts tour of the Middle East to ease fears over the deal. Well, the day's biggest story ahead of the monsoon session that starts on Tuesday, the NDA is bracing for an opposition onslaught on various issues, including the land bill and the Vyapam scam. Now, all indications are that the government will re-promulgate the land ordinance for a record 4th time. The monsoon session starts on 21st of July and will end on 13th of August. Senior BJP leaders, including Rajasthan Chief Minister Vasundhara Raje, meeting for a key strategy session to take on the opposition during the monsoon session. The meeting was held at Party President Amit Shah's residence in Delhi. Raje is in the thick of the controversy over her links with former IPL chairman Lalit Modi, along with the Vyapam scam. It is expected to be a major issue that will be exploited by the Congress and the left to target BJP leaders and the government. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself indicated as much late last week.
अब हम यहाँ मस्ती से बैठे हैं, लेकिन परसों देखना आप कैसा मुकाबला होता है.
Modi also convened a meeting of the NDA constituents, the first of its kind, on Monday, ahead of the session that starts on Tuesday. With no consensus on the land bill, the government is likely to promulgate the ordinance for an unprecedented 4th time. The opposition has signalled that the bill will not be allowed to pass.
पार्लियामेंट का चलना न चलना विपक्ष के हाथ में नहीं, और यदि भारतीय जनता पार्टी इन 1-2 दिन में उन पर एक्शन लेती है तो मेरे ख्याल में पार्लियामेंट का चलना और आसान होगा, बिल पास करने और आसान होंगे.
किसानों की बात आई, हम ऑर्डिनेंस पास करेंगे भैया. 3 बार ऑर्डिनेंस पास कर दिया. दम नहीं है, पार्लियामेंट में पास नहीं होने देंगे हम, देख लेना. 1 इंच जमीन नहीं जाएगी.
Agency reports said that the Joint Committee of Parliament headed by BJP MP SS Ahluwalia that is looking into the land bill meanwhile plans to seek a 2-week extension till 3rd of August to finalize its report. Further extensions may also be sought as the government did not want to bring the bill before Parliament until after the Bihar Assembly polls in September-October this year. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. All right, the government and the opposition, they are gearing up for the monsoon session that starts on Tuesday. Meanwhile, even as the CBI stepped up its investigation into the Vyapam job scam, the agency has highlighted instances of alleged inaction by the state police in probing many deaths which are suspected to be related to the case. Here is more.
The CBI has registered a preliminary inquiry into 9 deaths believed to be related to the Vyapam scam in Madhya Pradesh. No action has been initiated in any of these cases by the state police. The CBI will focus on finding if the deaths were indeed a fallout of the Vyapam scandal. On the political front, the BJP called Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan for a meeting believed to be on the issue.
मुख्यमंत्री और मंत्रिमंडल के साथियों के बात की जाती है, विशेष रूप से मुख्यमंत्री के बारे में उन पर आरोप लगाए गए हैं व्यापम के मुद्दे को लेकर, और जहां विटनेसेस इतनी तादाद में 40 से 50 लोग मारे गए हों, ये भारत के इतिहास में पहली दफा हुआ कि जहां विटनेसेस को जान से ही खत्म किया जा रहा.
The opposition once again sought the resignation of Chauhan on the issue and questioned the Prime Minister as well. Congress Chief Whip in the Lok Sabha, Jyotiraditya Scindia, has already said the issue will be raised during the Parliament session. He said the party is expected to focus in particular on the issue of the death of TV journalist Akshay Singh, who went to Meghnagar in Jhabua district to cover the case.
People working in the media should have protection, that ensures that they are not killed while exposing any scams. This death needs to be probed because the roots of Vyapam are too deep and people who are involved in it are of higher authority.
The death of Akshay Singh also came into international focus, with a UN body calling for a probe into his death on Saturday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And hundreds of home buyers held a protest in New Delhi on Sunday. They were demanding the early passage of Real Estate Bill Development and Regulation Bill. The home buyers also threatened to gheraw the parliament if the bill was not passed in the upcoming monsoon session.
Harassed home buyers gathered at Jantar Mantar in New Delhi on Sunday to demand a strong law to rein in errant real estate developers. Most of the buyers came from the National Capital Region.
किसी भी सेक्टर में चले जाइएगा, इंश्योरेंस में चले जाइएगा, हर जगह पे जो है वो रेगुलेटरी बिल है, कुछ गाइडलाइंस हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पे जहाँ पे लाखों करोड़ों रुपए का लेन देन है, यहाँ पे कोई गाइडलाइंस नहीं है, कोई बिल नहीं है, तो सबसे बड़ी कमी जो है मैं मानता हूँ कि कहीं ना कहीं सरकार की तरफ से है.
Most of these buyers suffered significant delays, in some cases over 4 years, in getting their flats. As per industry estimates, less than 20% of around 8 lakh flats due to be delivered in 2015 in the Delhi NCR region are complete. The same is true about Mumbai region, that also includes Navi Mumbai and Thane.
इस मुद्दे को आम आदमी का मुद्दा बना के रखा जाए, इस पे कोई राजनीति ना की जाए, चाहे वो कांग्रेस पार्टी हो या बीजेपी हो या कोई भी पार्टी हो, इस पे राजनीति ना करे. कुल अगर मानसून सेशन में इस मुद्दे को गंभीरता से नहीं लिया जाता है, रियल एस्टेट बिल को लागू नहीं किया जाता है, तो हम संसद का घेराव करने को तैयार हैं.
The Lok Sabha has passed the Real Estate Development and Regulation Bill 2013, which is pending before a select committee of Rajya Sabha. The report is expected in the monsoon session, but lack of consensus among political parties over some provisions may prove to be a stumbling block for the bill. Krishnanand Tripathi's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
And news from Bihar now. Well, in order to counter the BJP-led NDA, the JDU, RJD and the Congress and the NCP will all be campaigning jointly for the upcoming assembly polls there. This was decided at a meeting between JDU President Sharad Yadav, Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar and RJD Chief Lalu Prasad in Patna. Now, early this month, Nitish Kumar, the Chief Ministerial candidate of the Janata Parivar, had launched a Har Ghar Dastak campaign to reach out to millions of voters. However, a decision is still pending on the seat sharing between these parties. Meanwhile, there are indications that the polls will be held between late October and early November. The Election Commission is scheduled to visit Bihar to assess the preparedness of the state's electoral machinery.
मैं समझता हूं कि अब उस पर जल्दी करनी चाहिए और बैठकर इसका समाधान करना चाहिए, सीट शेयरिंग का, और जॉइंट कैंपेन शुरू होना चाहिए. अब उसमें विलंब करना ये मुनासिब नहीं होगा.
And the politics around the murder of a young woman by two brothers over a case of verbal abuse is fast heating up in Delhi. The Aam Aadmi Party government is alleging that this is one more instance of the deteriorating law and order situation in the national capital. Now, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has summoned Delhi Police Commissioner B.S. Basi for a meeting on Monday, besides seeking a detailed report on the incident that happened in West Delhi. He also made a strong pitch for handing over of Delhi police to the city government. The police commissioner, however, defended his force, saying that he will certainly try to dispel the misconceptions about their functioning in the upcoming meeting. He said that no changes are required in its administrative structure. Now, this comes as AAP Youth Wing workers staged a demonstration in front of the Delhi police headquarters today. The victim's family said that no FIR was registered despite repeated complaints of stalking in the past. The 19-year-old was repeatedly stabbed by two brothers on Thursday in the Anand Parbat area of the national capital. Now, a magisterial probe has been ordered into the case.
अब चूंकि एक रिक्वेस्ट आई है माननीय मुख्यमंत्री जी के कार्यालय से, उनके प्रिंसिपल सेक्रेटरी से मुझे, तो मैं ज़रूर जाऊंगा, मैं ज़रूर जाकर विचारों का आदान प्रदान करूंगा।
सिस्टम में कमी आ गई है जो हैंडल नहीं कर पा रही है, और इसको पॉलिटिसाइज करना, क्योंकि ये आवाम के लिए है, तो मैं समझती हूँ इसको पॉलिटिकल साइज करना और एक दूसरे को ब्लेम करना, इससे हल नहीं निकलने वाला है। मैं सबको ये कह रही हूँ और मैं इसमें विश्वास रखती हूँ कि कमीशन बैठाना चाहिए कि पुलिस की ट्रेनिंग में क्या तब्दीली लानी चाहिए, पुलिस किस तरह से ऐसी चीज़ों को रिस्पॉन्ड करे।
आई थिंक सिचुएशन इन दिल्ली इज टोटली अनएक्सेप्टेबल. The central government roles and responsibility is every time blamed by the state government, and by that they absolve themselves of the responsibility because they every time make an excuse that police is not under their control. Now, what kind of a promise did he make? Did he not realize this is the situation in Delhi that is going to be developing in future?
And 5 people were confirmed dead in a building collapse in the national capital's West Delhi locality last evening. Now, rescue efforts continued well into the night. A young girl is still suspected to be trapped under the debris. The death toll rose today even as the Delhi government ordered an inquiry and lodged an FIR against unidentified persons. The district magistrate assured that a report within a week will be issued and strict action will be taken against the culprits. The Delhi government accused the BJP-led MCD of failing to ensure compliance with the safety standards, charges of which the civic body has denied. The civic body said that a seepage and sewer lines could have weakened the foundation of the building, leading to its collapse.
अगर कोई भी कंस्ट्रक्शन हो रही थी तो एमसीडी की पूरी जिम्मेदारी बनती है उसको रोकने की, और एमसीडी को रोकना चाहिए था। हमने जांच के आदेश दिए, जांच में जो पता लगे, जो भी इसमें कल्प्रिट होंगे उनके खिलाफ एक्शन लिया जाएगा।
बारिश के कारण, जिस कारण से भी एमसीडी के लोग, एमसीडी की कमेटी, हमने अपने मेयर को कहा है, हमने अपने कमिश्नर को उनको कहा है कि उसके बारे में वो जांच करें कि घटना किस कारण से हुई है। अब घटना किसी ने कोई जानबूझ करके करा दी क्या? या हम सवाल यह है कि हम किस तरह की बात कर रहे हैं।
In other news, heavy rains created hardships for the people in North India. In Madhya Pradesh, many cities were flooded, while in Uttarakhand, the pilgrims undertaking the Char Dham Yatra were left stranded due to the landslides there, which were triggered by non-stop rains.
Heavy rainfall flooded many cities in Madhya Pradesh, notably Ujjain, where rainwater entered many houses, shops and other places, throwing life completely out of gear. Transportation came to a standstill due to damaged roads, bridges and railway tracks. Trains are running behind schedule due to water on the tracks. The Shipra River flowed above danger mark and submerged many temples on the bank. Rains also snapped electrical wires, cutting electricity supply in several parts of the city.
2 दिन से यहाँ पर लगातार मूसलाधार बारिश हो रही है। रेलवे ट्रैक पर पानी भर गया, 1 दर्जन से अधिक गाड़ियाँ बंद हो चुकी हैं, कई गाड़ियाँ आउटर पर रुकी हुई है तो कई स्टेशन पर फंसी हुई है, और शिप्रा नदी में भी काफ़ी पानी आ चुका है, जिसकी वजह से शिप्रा नदी के जितने भी मंदिर है वो सब जलमग्न हो चुके हैं। जो ब्रिज है शिप्रा नदी के, बड़ा पुल और छोटा पुल, उसके ऊपर से भी पानी गुजर रहा है, इसलिए आवाजाही पूरी तरीके से बंद हो चुकी है।
In Uttarakhand, hundreds of pilgrims undertaking the Char Dham Yatra were left stranded due to landslides triggered by non-stop rains. A landslide on Saturday blocked the crucial Gangotri highway near Raturi Sera village. Landslides also led to the closure of the Badrinath National Highway, and districts like Chamoli and Rudraprayag were cut off from other parts of the state.
5:30 बजे से रास्ता बंद है, बस अभी चल रहा है, अभी कब खुलेगा? अभी क्या हुआ, अभी खाना पीना भी कुछ नहीं है खाने के लिए, अभी ये तो क्या 600-700 लोग तो इधर फंसे हैं।
As a safety measure, the administration has now stopped all the people in Srinagar Municipal Board of Uttarakhand and has also prohibited them from going further.
क्योंकि भारी बरसात चल रही है पहाड़ों में, तो इस वजह से यहाँ पर भी काफ़ी टिपिकल रहता है। तो ये स्लाइडिंग जोन है, इस वजह से यहाँ पे कल शाम को टूट गया था। उसके बाद यहाँ पे गाड़ियों की कुछ कतारें लग गई थी, स्वाभाविक है। तो हमारे द्वारा इन गाड़ी जो पीछे भी जो गाड़ियाँ आ रही थी उन्हें श्रीनगर में रोका गया है, और सुरक्षा के दृष्टिकोण चूँकि श्रीनगर थोड़ा सा कहीं ना कहीं सुरक्षित है, और जो यात्रीगण आते हैं चार धाम से तो उनके लिए ठहरने और खाने की व्यवस्थाएं भी अच्छी है। इस वजह से इन लोगों को हमने श्रीनगर में ही रोका है।
In the coming week, private weather forecaster SkyMet has predicted monsoon showers in southeast Rajasthan and east and central parts of Gujarat. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And for more national news and updates, let's take you nationwide. 3 fishermen were injured by Sri Lankan naval personnel who pelted stones at them and cut fishing nets of 5 boats in Kachativu. The fishermen were part of a group of about 2,300 who went into the sea in 565 boats. Fearing more attacks, the other fishermen returned without any catch. After terming the protests against FTII Chairman Gajendra Chauhan anti-Hindu, the RSS mouthpiece organizer has alleged that prestigious institutes like IITs were being turned into places for anti-India and anti-Hindu activities. The RSS weekly is strongly arguing for the government to bring in changes in the education sector in line with its Hindutva policies. Differences persisted over the contentious issues of contract labour and minimum wages between central trade unions and the government at a meeting on the eve of the 46th Indian Labour Conference. The points of convergence emerged over issues like recognition of trade unions, amendment to the Bonus Act and provision for greater social security benefits for workers. The high-level meeting was attended by representatives of central trade unions and also members of an interministerial panel which included Arun Jaitley, Bandaru Dattatreya, Dharmendra Pradhan, Piyush Goyal and Minister of State in the Prime Minister's office. Well, in News Tonight, we'll take a very short break, but after the break, we'll get you all the international news. Well, after the Chattanooga shootout, US steps up security in defense installations. Details to follow. Stay with us. Welcome back after the break. Now, news coming in from the United States. Well, days after deadly shootings at 2 military facilities in that country, now governors of 6 US states have moved an order to arm military personnel at offices and also the National Guard facilities to deter such attacks. Now, the shooting that killed 4 US Marines and a Navy sailor is being investigated as an act of domestic terrorism. It has raised questions about the vulnerability of the country's troops on home soil. Here is more. The US is reviewing security at its military recruiting centers. 3 days after the Chattanooga shooting in which a gunman killed 4 US Marines and a sailor, besides injuring many others in Tennessee, governors of 6 US states are ordering National Guard members at facilities to be armed. Other security improvements could include provision of bulletproof glass and enhanced surveillance equipment.
We have 6 retail recruitment centers around the state. They're immediately closed down. Those recruitment officers are moved to the closest armory. We have 55 armories across the state of Florida. They will not be reopened until we're comfortable that our National Guard members are safe.
Meanwhile, details are emerging on 24-year-old Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz, the gunman killed in the shootout with police. A night before the shooting, he sent a text linked to his friends, which was a religious verse about declaring war. Abdulaziz also spoke out against conflicts in the Middle East. Police said that his motives are being investigated, even as mourners gathered at a makeshift memorial to pay their respects to the 5 servicemen who were killed.
I didn't think anything like this would ever happen in our city, a small, close-knit community. And again, no words can express the devastation, the sorrow that we feel for not only our community but our nation.
Abdulaziz began Thursday's attack with the shooting spree at a recruitment center in Chattanooga. He then drove 10 kilometers to a Navy and Marine Reserve center where he shot and killed 4 Marines. A 5th victim, a Navy officer, died of his injuries on Saturday. The shooting raised questions about the vulnerability of US troops on home soil. US Defense Secretary Ashton Carter has also asked the military services to determine if additional steps are needed to be taken to ensure the safety of people at military installations. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. And more news related to United States. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter is in Israel today to allay the country's and Arab nations' fears on the recently signed Iran nuclear deal. Now, the White House has launched an aggressive lobbying campaign to sell the accord at home and also abroad, but it is facing a deep skepticism from the lawmakers and also traditional US allies. Now, Obama is looking to build enough support in Congress to sustain a veto of any resolution which is disapproving of the deal. The Iran nuclear agreement is complete, but the debate over the deal has just begun. US Defense Secretary Ashton Carter has begun a tour of the Middle East to ease fears over the deal. Today, Carter will meet officials in Israel, one of the strongest critics of the deal. Carter then travels to Saudi Arabia, Iran's main regional rival. However, Israeli leadership has rejected US's idea that the world powers could not have reached a better agreement with Iran over its nuclear program. The country has also hinted that it could ask for increased US military aid as a counterweight to the accord.
אם מישהו חשב שהוויתורים המפלגים לאיראן יביאו לשינוי במדיניותה, הוא קיבל בסוף השבוע תשובה מוחצת בנאומו התוקפני והמתריס של שליט איראן חמינאי.
Last Wednesday, world powers reached agreement with Iran on limiting the country's nuclear activity in return for lifting of sanctions. Netanyahu has called the deal a historic mistake, which would only make it easier for Iran to back its proxies in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader vowed on Saturday that the deal would not alter Iran's policies towards the United States. However, he also praised the Iranian negotiators who struck the deal.
ایستادگی ملت، مقاومت ملت و بر اثر
Saudi Arabia has officially said it supports the deal, although it is also thought to have similar concerns to Israel that the agreement legitimizes Iran. However, US President Barack Obama has strongly defended the landmark deal, but the pressure is only going to increase over his administration over the next 2 months as congressional Democrats struggle with whether to provide opponents with the votes needed to kill the deal. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And more international news and updates in Global Buzz. UK Prime Minister pledged to help America destroy self-styled Islamic State extremists in Iraq and Syria as he gave his clearest signal yet that UK forces could be asked to join airstrikes. Now, Cameron is expected to announce a 5-year plan for fighting the terrorist group on Monday. Iraqi forces continue their major offensive to free key cities and towns that are held by Islamic State in Iraq's western province of Anbar. The aim of this offensive by the security forces and their allies is to recapture the militant sea city of Fallujah, which is some 50 kilometers from Baghdad. A fast-moving brush fire swept across the California interstate on Friday, torching vehicles and sending people running for their lives before burning property in a desert town. A rare summer storm helped firefighters advance on Saturday as light rain and moist air dampened the blaze in the mountainous area in the northeast of Los Angeles. High floodwaters destroyed buildings and swept away cars after heavy storms in central Arizona on Saturday. Up to 3,000 homes and businesses were left without power as more than 50 electrical poles were knocked down. There were no reports of injuries, however. And on to sports now. Well, the IPL Governing Council today formed a subcommittee to delve deep into the judgment which was issued on the 2 IPL teams by the Justice Lodha Committee. And the committee is now to submit its report in the next 6 weeks. With the Chennai Super Kings and Rajasthan Royals suspended from the format for the next 2 years, the board now needs to decide on the changes which are required for the next edition of IPL.
The fate of the 2 suspended IPL teams hangs in balance as the troubled IPL Governing Council met in Mumbai today. The body discussed repercussions of the punishment handed down by the Justice Lodha Committee to the Chennai Super Kings and Rajasthan Royals. The IPL Governing Council, headed by Rajiv Shukla, will also chart a future course of action for the T20 event. Shukla assured that the judgment issued by the Lodha Committee will be implemented to the book.
Within 6 months, it will be submitting its report. We have decided to implement the Lodha Committee report in toto, in letter and spirit. Whatever they have recommended, we are going to implement it, and we respect the verdict, and accordingly we are going to act.
The council has decided to form a 5-member subcommittee to study the Lodha panel's verdict and submit its report within 6 weeks' time. There's a massive tug-of-war raging among the members of the governing body. One lobby strongly feels the team's contracts need to be terminated with immediate effect, but others feel the 2-year suspension is punishment enough and terminating their contracts will harm the brand IPL. Both teams have made an 8-year investment in the tournament.
A subgroup is is being constituted, which will recommend what all is to be done.
Shukla promised that the verdict and the future decisions by the council will have little effect on the tournament as such, and the next edition will be bigger and better.
In future, and we can say that everybody is of the opinion that show must go on. The value of league should be enhanced. So IPL 9, I am still saying and reiterating, is going to be better than the previous edition.
The Supreme Court appointed Justice Lodha Disciplinary Committee has left the issue of termination of contracts of the IPL franchisees with the BCCI. One of the options available for the IPL is to run the two suspended teams with BCCI control. However, issues of conflict of interest could crop up again. The council has to negotiate a very tricky path full of legal hurdles. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, things are looking a little grim in IPL, but in news coming in from tennis, there's a lot of cheer because as India has advanced to World Group playoffs following a 3-2 win over New Zealand in the Asia-Oceania Group 1 Davis Cup tie. Well, it was a do-or-die situation for India, who were trailing the tie 1-2 after a shock defeat in yesterday's doubles and needing to win both reverse singles. Somdev Devvarman levelled the tie with a straight-set win over Marcus Daniel in the first match, while a fired-up Yuki Bhamri then recorded his first-ever victory in a live fifth rubber as he beat Michael Venus 6-2, 6-2, 6-3. India will now strive to make the World Group when they compete in the playoffs in September this year. And Zimbabwe shocked India in the second T20 match by beating them by 10 runs in Harare today. It was Zimbabwe's first ever T20 win over India. Now batting first, Zimbabwe were powered by informed batsman Chibaba's half-century as they reached the total of 145. In reply, India lost captain Rahane in the first over, but then Murli Vijay and Robin Uthappa scored briskly to take India over 50-run mark in the sixth over. However, a mini collapse reduced India to 69 for the loss of 5 wickets, a damage from which they could not recover. India needed 20 runs off the last over, but they managed only 10 runs, letting the hosts tie the series 1-all. And more sporting action in Sports Beat. Brazilian football legend Pelé was admitted back to hospital 2 months after a prostate surgery. Reports say that the 74-year-old was suffering from a trapped nerve and has had back surgery at the Albert Einstein Hospital in Sao Paulo. The 3-time World Cup winner was treated for a urinary infection 8 months ago after having kidney stones removed. Former FIFA Vice President Jeffrey Webb pleaded not guilty in connection with a massive corruption scandal in the World Football governing body. Now, Webb, who is accused of accepting bribes worth millions of dollars in connection with the sale of marketing rights, was detained in Switzerland in May along with 6 football officials. He was later extradited to the United States. Josep Maria Bartomeu was re-elected as Barcelona president for a second term after he beat former president Joan Laporta in Saturday's election. The 52-year-old will now lead the club for the next 6 years. Now, Bartomeu had endured a turbulent spell, having taken over in January 2014 from Sandro Rosell, who stood down following the Neymar transfer scandal. Luton Hewitt put Australia into the Davis Cup semi-finals after winning the decisive singles rubber against Kazakhstan. Australia will meet either Britain or France for a place in their first final since 2003. Argentina also advanced to the semi-finals after taking an unassailable 3-0 lead against Serbia. Well, that's it from me and my team in this edition of News Tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Good night.